Hello, everyone, and welcome to Groundwater Talk Live. I am Tom Ballard, the Groundwater Guy, and today we are going to be talking about the benefits of asset management for small water districts. And we're doing this today from the 40,000-foot view, so we're getting the big picture, as it were, and we'll be diving into more details in other shows. But today we're really looking at the overall aspects of benefits for small water districts. But before we do that, before we dive in, like, comment, and share. I was asked this; it helps us get the word out and improves our standing with the algorithm, as it were. I always answer every comment I get on the YouTube channel and on LinkedIn, which is the main place we share this. But any shares and likes really help as well. So I appreciate all that. Thank you very much. All right. So today we are talking about the benefits of asset management for small water districts. And we need to draw a distinction here between small water districts and large water districts because large water districts typically have fairly robust asset management plans that they have in place. But small water districts, as they do with so many things, tend to struggle with this type of thing because it is a little bit of commitment of time and effort to get it set up, but maintaining it moving forward is fairly easy. And there's some ways to do this that is not incredibly sophisticated. We have to have complicated databases and things like that. You can do a spreadsheet based program. You can ease it in. There are some GIS programs out there that make it really easy to map your system out. So the technology is getting better for this, and but really what we want to talk about today is the benefits of doing that to convince small water systems that they really need to have some sort of asset management program and really improve that over time and keep working on it to make it better because it is really the basis for the sound management of a water utility, big or small, is to understand what your assets are doing. So assets are really the biggest component of a water system. That's where all your capital expenses go, and so having an asset management program and spending that money wisely, because money is not easy to come by, is very important. All right, so let's dive in here, and we're going to talk a little bit about the definition of asset management first, so you get an understanding of what it is we're really talking about here. So it's really maintaining a desired level of service for what you want your assets to provide at the lowest life cycle cost. So we're balancing levels of service with the costs over the life of those assets. So let me get here, better in the picture here. So lowest life cycle cost refers to the best appropriate cost for rehabilitating, repairing, or replacing an asset. All assets have specific lives, and some have some premature failure. Unfortunately, we need to plan for all that. But if we can minimize our costs by actually maximizing our management of those assets. And that is really what an asset management program is really all about, is minimizing those costs through proper management and planning with those assets. Um, Asset management is implemented through an asset management program. So that's really what we're talking about here is what the program and the benefits of having that program in place. And typically that program is going to include a written asset management plan. So you're going to have some spreadsheets, you're going to have a written asset management plan. You're going to understand what's going on with the life of your assets and how long they're going to last, what your likely points of failure are. Those are common components of an asset management plan. Uh, this is basically what it looks like. Like I say, we're going to dive into this in more detail in subsequent shows, but this is really there's five components to an asset management program, and I got the infographic here to show what those are. Today we're just looking at the 40,000 viewpoint, but I just wanted to show this to you. So All right, so let's dive into our topic today is the benefits of an asset management plan, and we're focusing on small water utilities. Like I say, most bigger water utilities are going to have probably a pretty robust and sophisticated asset management program because they got a lot of assets and they need to deal with that. And there's a lot of capital costs involved in maintaining those assets, so having a plan is important. This works for small water districts too. You don't have to be as sophisticated as the big guys, but you do need to have some planning, and we'll talk about really the benefits of that and of having that planning program, that asset management program, and how that benefits you in the long run. So number one is improved decision making. So that's probably would have been your guess if if we were having you guess on this. And really, what happens with a lot of small water districts, and I've been to their board meetings and things like that, is they do a lot of what we call ad hoc planning. So it's just kind of winging it. That does not work when you're dealing with capital assets and trying to plan those things out. So really, what an asset management plan gives us is a systematic decision making process as opposed to that off the cuff or ad hoc planning process. Um, that's really to be avoided because we tend to make poor decisions with ad hoc planning. We tend to just put our finger in the dike and try to patch things up and kick the can down the road. I can tell you we got a water system near where I live that it's pretty evident that they do not have a uh, um, a real good asset management plan because constantly having pipe failures and most of their piping and distribution lines are way out of date. They should have been replaced a long time ago, and so they're running around patching everything. There's system failures and as a consequence, they're having problems with the regulatory agencies, and everybody knows what the problem is. It's just that poor planning and poor asset management plan. I don't even think they have one. I've been looking into it. I don't think they have an asset management plan. They really need one because you get this kick the can down the road, deferred maintenance, and it starts to add up to the point where you can't keep up. So, systematic decision making really tends to avoid that because we're sitting down and we're looking at our system as a whole and what needs to be done and when. All right. So ultimately, systematic planning really results in more defensible and reproducible capital investment decisions and maintenance practices. And another benefit here is getting along better with your stakeholders. And this really helps in that regard because we're making sound decisions based on good data, the data we have, and it becomes more defensible. It also helps in our financing and getting SRF funds and if you're doing bonds, those types of things as well. So it really adds to the improved decision making, but benefits us all the way around in other areas too. All right, so better risk management. Risk management is a huge component of dealing with the water system because failure is really not an option. We do get failures. We got to figure out how to deal with those. We have to have a plan to deal with those. But you can basically asset management provides a more rigorous process in defining and quantifying risk. And that provides a uniform evaluation of assets, which means the risk can be fairly assessed, which means we're really, determining what the risks are and when things are likely to fail, and plan for that. Replace it before it becomes a point of failure, and also mitigating risk by having a plan in place to replace assets that may fail prematurely. So risk mitigation can be optimized under a risk management or under a asset management plan because that's really what we're looking at is we're looking at our common points of failure. We're looking at what the asset management is going to provide us is a list of our assets, the time that they are likely going to be useful for, and then a plan for replacing those before they get to the failure point. And also, yeah, another component of that, and this is the risk management component, is what happens if we get premature failure? And having a plan for all that will minimize system downtime, even if you do have uh, a premature failure. But you will have less of those with an asset management plan because you're replacing your assets on a timely basis. The asset management plan is going to feed into your capital improvement plan, which is going to provide the money for replacing those assets on a timely basis. So you don't get a huge backlog of deferred maintenance that is going to result in kicking the can down the road and those catastrophic failures that are going to get you in trouble with the regulatory agencies and your stakeholders both, and that's not a good place to be. All right, lower costs. This is always of interest to water systems. Reduced operating and maintenance costs and long-term capital expenses, optimizing the decision-making process. So this is the benefit of an asset management plan. We're going to know when our assets need to be replaced. We're going to be able to plan for that. We're going to set aside the money for that, and it results in optimal management and replacement of those assets before they fail. And ultimately, when you're not dealing with emergency costs and trying to find parts in an emergency, they're going to be more expensive. Doing repairs at midnight on Christmas Eve is going to be more expensive and overtime. So being able to plan for that to minimize those types of incidences is going to result in lower costs. Asset management programs reduce unnecessary investments and they improve the timing of repair, rehabilitation, and replacement decisions. And that's really what it comes down to is repair, rehabilitation, and replacement. So somebody once told me that the capital improvement plan should be called a capital replacement plan. And that really is true, except capital replacement plan gets abbreviated to CRP, and people would probably be pronouncing that crap, so we probably don't want to do that. But so we stick with capital improvement plan or CIP. So just just an aside on that. All right, so improve public confidence, and obviously nobody likes to get complaints from their stakeholders, whether that's the customers, whether that's uh, pointed inquiries from the local newspaper on what's going on with our water system and why have we had all these failures. So sound asset management leads to better decisions, and better decisions are obviously going to improve our relations with our customers and our stakeholders. When they have confidence in the decisions we make because they're based on sound data and the data on our system, then they're going to be a lot happier. When it comes time to do a rate increase, you're going to be able to pull out your asset management plan, say we planned for this. This is why it's necessary. Costs have gone up, and we need to do a rate increase because here is our asset management plan that feeds into our capital improvement plan. This is why we need the money. You're able to justify that, and it becomes a sound decision. And people may still, customers are never happy with rate increases, but at least they understand you'll get less resistance. If it just seems like it's an ad hoc decision and we're just winging it, you're going to get a lot more pushback from your customers and the stakeholders. Um, so better communication about service levels, along with asset condition and the performance to meet those service levels, is really important. I mean, even when you're looking at equipment that may be the lifespan may be less than what you originally anticipated or what its class life was when you classified that. By looking at your assets on a regular basis, say, look, this is not likely going to last as long as we planned. We're going to have to move it up in the priority to replace it a little earlier. That is made based on observations, sound data, and then you're not waiting for it to absolutely fail before you go out and are conducting emergency repairs. So staying on top of things, not just looking at the assets from the standpoint of when we need to replace them, but always staying on top of the condition and assessing those assets on a regular rotational basis so that you always have current data on the status of those assets. All right, improved bond rating. This may not always apply to smaller water districts, but it is something to take into account. It really an asset management plan really speaks to sound financial management, and that's the important thing. So whether you're getting SRF funds, which we're going to talk about next, bond rating, whether you're going for to get a rate increase, having an asset management plan will give you, which feeds into the capital improvement plan, will give you the sound information and the backing to make those sound decisions you need to really go out and get the financing and show that you really need this funds, and the funds are going to be properly used and expended in a way that is where they're not being wasted and we're not making unnecessary expenditures. So uh, basically what you're doing is you're demonstrating you're a good steward of your capital resources. That's very important, especially these days where funding can be tight. We need to show that we have a need for this money, we're going to spend it wisely, and having an asset management program in place allows us to do that. Good management practices lead to lower interest rates and insurance premium due to reduced risk. Basically, you are reducing your risk, and that is what bonding agencies, that's what insurance companies look at. Anybody that's providing financing is going to look at what kind of risk are you going to be. An asset management program is going to allow you to reduce that risk and demonstrate that you are reducing that risk and that you are, like I said, sound stewards of those capital resources, and thereby reducing the risk, and that makes you a good risk for financing. So this is very important. Every water utility is capital intensive. It needs money. So by reducing the insurance requirements, reducing interest rates, we can save a few bucks and actually get that money and put it to the capital improvements that we need to make. Higher state revolving fund priority. So state revolving fund grants mainly loans that comes from the state through the EPA, and having an asset management program can give higher priority weighting for SRF funding because once again, as I said, you are demonstrating sound fiscal management, that you do have a need and you're prioritizing those needs, and you do good planning, which makes you a lower risk and moves you up the rankings. The asset management plan gives a clear schedule of your assets and timing for repair, rehabilitation, and that should say replacement. Repair, rehabilitation, and replacement. Boy, I got a lot of typos in there. My apologies. Which means efficient use of the funds and lower risks. And that's really what they're looking at. So, all right, knowledge retention. This is a huge deal these days. Most people don't think about it too much, but with a large proportion of the workforce approaching retirement, or what we're calling the silver tsunami out there, there's a risk of losing that critical infrastructure knowledge, institutional knowledge that is retained in the heads of people that have been working on the water system for 30 years. They've accumulated a lot of knowledge. And if they retire without you transferring that knowledge, you lose that when they retire. And Joe, when he retires, doesn't want to be getting phone calls 10 times a day asking people where something's stored, or what the story on this particular asset, or where is the well log. I mean, they'll do a little bit of that, but it's kind of like, I'm retired, quit bugging me. So you need to have a way to retain that knowledge. An asset management plan is one way to actually transfer that experience and expertise where it can be retained by the utility. So you're putting that into the asset management plan. You're doing an inventory of all your assets, the condition, and what you're going to want to do. And this is not necessarily part of an asset management plan, but it should, is you should have some kind of knowledge of where the manuals are, or some type of video that shows how these how these assets are operated. Where's the manual for the SCADA system? I mean, stuff like that. That's important because it you lose that information when people leave or retire. You got to get it down on paper so when new people come in, they can get a head start. And an asset management plan is a big component of that. All right, improved coordination and communication. Who couldn't use better communication? Even if you're a small utility, that communication is vitally important. And so, having an asset management plan can facilitate sharing of information within the utility. You can just pull out your asset management plan, point to an asset, say, we're going to have to replace this next year. That's what the schedule is. And you have some good communication going. Do we have the funds in our capital improvement plan to do everything that's in our asset management plan that needs to be replaced? And so now you have the basis for good communication because once again, it's based on sound data. Um, and it also avoids duplication of effort and improves allocation of time and resources. You're not spending a lot of time hunting down information because you have it all in your spreadsheet and your asset management plan. You can just pull that out, whether it's on the computer, you can share it, or whether it's written down and you bring it in to the board meeting and project it up on the projector so everybody can see it and everybody has that knowledge all at the same time. It's right there, and you're avoiding a lot of the winging it effort, digging through file cabinets, looking for files from 20 years ago to see what this particular valve manufacturer, even if they're still in business, how we replace that and go from there. You've got it all in your asset management plan. All right, improved regulatory compliance, our final component here, but certainly not the least important, is staying up with the regulatory compliance. And the regulators do not look on you kindly if you have common failures. You're getting boil water notices all the time because you had a leak or some kind of surface water intrusion into your well that the coliform's kicked up and now you got a boil water order, or just constant failures and your chlorinators going out, not operating properly, so your chlorine residuals are not where they need to be. These are things that can lead to write-ups and fines and more of a crackdown from the regulators. So with an asset management plan, you're maintaining all those things, so you should have minimal premature failures, and that's going to improve your regulatory compliance. So an asset management program will give you an understanding of the likely failure points in the system and give you a plan to address them. So where are our risks? And usually what'll happen is not only do we look at class lives for assets and when they need to be replaced, but we're going to look at the risk. We're going to prioritize those things based on the risk of failure. And this is something we're going to dive into more in as we get into specifics on how to put together an asset management plan in future shows. But you're quantifying that risk, you're prioritizing assets based on risk. This is going to improve your regulatory compliance because you're really focusing on the things that are going to get you in trouble with the regulators. And obviously the regulators are focused on things that are going to get clean water to your customers. So you're going to get less pushback from the customers too. So improved regulatory compliance is a good thing all the way around, not just avoiding the fines, although that is important, but it is a good thing all the way around because it keeps the clean water flowing to your customers too, and that makes the regulators happy. So lower failure rates on critical infrastructure equals to better regulatory compliance. That's just flat out. They're gonna leave you alone. They're not going to show up as often, and everybody gets nervous when the regulators are showing up on a regular basis, and So you don't want that. If you're in compliance, if your failure rates are low, if you're doing everything you're supposed to do, you're not going to see the regulators much. You may get a phone call with them annually or something like that, or they may come out, for a quick visit, give you a big thumbs up and leave. That's really where you want to be. So those are the components of the benefits of asset management for small utilities. Well, like I say, we will dive into the various components in future shows in a little bit more detail, but you can see the benefits are really there. I would say that most small water utilities and the really small ones don't have asset management plans at all. There's a high percentage that really don't have asset management plans at all. You need to have something. There are some simple ways to get going, and we will share some of that in future shows. But it doesn't have to be this incredible, sophisticated project. You can start very easily just by getting an inventory of your assets and then figuring out where they're at, and you can implement this over time. But you can see the benefits are manyfold. So I appreciate you watching. If you got any questions, please feel free to get a hold of me on LinkedIn or post a comment on the video on YouTube. And we appreciate you watching. We'll be back next week with another show.